Alright, in the last video we put together the revenue and the cost for this problem, so now let's figure out what the refund is. And so now once again we end up with a situation, because if I have an order quantity of 100, well I have demand of 100, I sell all 100 calendars, therefore I've got none to send back. So once again here we'd have to use an if statement. So if we have calendars to send back, it will send them back, otherwise we do not. So let's drop this down to 50 to guarantee that no matter what, we'll have calendars to send back. So what do? Well, we write our if statement. The first thing we have to do is figure out, do we have calendars to send back? So we type out if, we run our logical test. So our logical test is going to be, was the order quantity greater than the demand? So if the order quantity is greater than the demand, we have to send calendars back. How many calendars do we end up sending back if the order quantity is greater than the demand? Well, it's going to be the order quantity minus the demand, because that will give us how many calendars have not been sold. Now, if the order quantity is less than demand, well, we're going to return 0 because there's going to be nothing to send back. So if I execute this right as it is now, you can see demand's 300. We only ordered 50. And we can also see that I made a mistake in my thing because, wait, if demand's 300, order quantity was 50, we should have 250 calendars to send back. Okay, so where did we make the mistake? So if B9 is greater than the demand, oh no, there's no mistake there because we shouldn't have anything. I'm sorry, I'm not thinking straight. Let's make this 400 to ensure that we have ones to send back. There we go. And so now as I look at it, well, I ordered 400 calendars. I only can sell 150. Well, what does that mean? That means that I'm going to have, well, in this case, I ordered 400, I have 250. I'm going to have to send 150 of them back. So the equation is working as we expect. Now we do need to lock in this B9. We don't want that to change. So I'm going to put my F4s on B9. I do want C to change because I'm going to drag it down. Okay, so that formula is ready to drag down, but that's only saying how many calendars are we sending back for a refund. Well, now I need to multiply that by my refund price. So they're going to give me $250 for each of those calendars. And I want to lock that in because I'm going to drag that down. I do not want that to change. And so there we go. We order 400 calendars. We have to send 300 of them back. Well, we're going to get a $750 refund for that. Okay, so as we go and look here, so that's with $400. It's 400 calendars. It's going to cost us that. Let's put this at let's start with a more reasonable, like 175. And so there we go. So we order 175 calendars. The demand is 250, so we make $1,750 selling them. They cost $1,300. There is no refund. Well, now we can calculate out profit. So revenue plus my refund minus my cost. And so in my situation where I order 175 and I have a demand of 150, I'm going to make a nice tidy $250 profit. All right. Thing is, that doesn't really help us because that's just one situation. But if we do it 1,000 times, we can kind of calculate out an expected value. So I'm just going to double click here. And that's going to drag all the way down to hit the bottom of what we've got. But I can see that there's something that didn't get locked in because, oh wow, that's a $30,000 revenue charge there. And I've got some value error. So definitely something got messed up in my equations, which is fine. It's always good to click and check out. So I'm going to click on that. Let's see how did that drag? So the minimum of, okay, those are right. Times B9. That's the problem, is I forgot to lock in my unit price here for my revenue. So I'm going to go back, add that in. That should tidy that up. and then we'll double click to drag that down. Now everything looks good because I see no errors, but I still want to just randomly pick a couple things. I always like picking one in each column and just randomly picking just to make sure that everything's rolling as expected. All right, so there we go. We've got a profit, a refund, a cost. We have 1,000 simulations. Now let's actually start making some headway with it. So I'm going to go over here. I'm going to figure out my average profit. So I do my average, and then I'm going to pick all of my profit. Figure out what the average profit of all these simulations is. Now, once again, I would normally like using a range name for that, so I wouldn't have to drag all that down, but since we're doing this 3 different times, I couldn't really do it. So at 175, it's telling us that we're going to average about $334.19. That is going to slightly change every single time that we execute things, but we're doing it 1,000 times, so it shouldn't float. It's not going to float by too much. It's going to be able to give us a general idea of what's going on. So let's also calculate our standard deviation of our sample. Well, technically, this really isn't a sample. We can just do of the population because we know all of the data. And we go. We're going to close that up. And so, see, it changed 336, and it's deviating by about 167. And the last thing I want to do is, for completeness, I want to know what the minimum profit in this situation is and the maximum. So we're going to go and do the minimum profit of those numbers, negative 125. I'm going to drag that down. Actually, dragging it down is not what I wanted to do. Let's just copy what that array is, which is what I should have done in the first place. And then we'll change this to max. So equals maximum of that array. And so there we go. So for 175 calendars, this is going to, average profit's going to be about 320 somewhere in there. It's going to have a little bit of a spread, but you will notice one thing is the maximum and minimum profit for this are not going to change. And that's just because of the way the equations are put together. So I can sit there and I can drive it. So it's always going to be min and max between those two. So what can I do? Well, I can sit here and I can keep changing up my order quantity and looking at where things go. But I'm just changing one number, so this is where I can use my wonderful data tables. And so we can start taking a look at things. So let's go to my data table here. I'm going to want to change around this average profit equation, which is all going to be based on the simulation here. And I want to do it by changing up my order quantity. So let's highlight all of this stuff. We go to data, what if analysis, and data table. So from there, I've got the numbers that I want to change in the column. So that's going to be my column input cell. And so I want these numbers to replace the order quantity. And we hit OK. And there it goes, and it executes for us. Let us go and go to home. We are going to put some conditional formatting on here. And we're just going to do the color scales green to red. So as I look at this, because once again, this is all about probabilities. Well, right off the bat, we kind of look at this and go, these are our 3 best possibilities. You know, it's looking like the 150, 175, and 200 give us the best average profit. So the average profit, it's that matrix of that discrete, this is what our probabilities is, times what we can make on it, and that's what's giving us our expected value of the distribution. So we've got 3 of them here, 150, 175, 200, and we can go, well, it looks like that 175 gives us the absolute best chance at the highest profit, or gives us the probability of the highest profit. But there's more to the numbers than what's going on there. So what I want to do is I want to investigate a little bit what's going on. So here is where we're going to go, and we're going to drop in and use our pivot tables. because we want to take a look at things and see some probabilities and whatnot. So what we're going to go is we're going to go to Insert. We're going to go Insert a Pivot Table. It's going to ask me to select a range. So what I want to do is I want to pick up, I don't need the replications because that's just which number that I did. So I want to go and grab everything else. And then hit OK. And so that's my range. And I want to do it in my existing worksheet. So I'm going to give it a location because I'm going to want to drop it up where I'm at. So the location is we're going to drop it right here and say OK. And you can see that our pivot table fields have shown up here. And so what we're going to do, we're going to end it here. In the next video, we're actually going to start using this pivot table so we can figure out the probability of what's the chance that we're going to make a profit. Because this 100, if we went with 175, that doesn't guarantee us a profit. It just gives us the expected value of the highest profit. There's still a chance that we might lose money. So we want to dive a little bit closer into these numbers. And we're going to do that in the next video.